Lowell Planning Board meeting. Tonight we do have 4 public hearings advertised and scheduled, so please be patient with us this evening. The first matter on the agenda tonight for public hearing is the matter of 1235 Bridge Street, which is known presently as the Market Basket. A public hearing will be held to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Valley Properties, Inc. for a site plan review for the property located at the above address. The proposal includes the demolition of the existing 133,100 square foot retail building containing, among others, a Market Basket and a vacant Ames department store, and construction in its place a 110,500 square foot shopping center consisting of 3 separate buildings. One building will be 91,062 square feet and house an expanded Market Basket grocery store and space for 3 additional commercial tenants. One being 5,200 square foot retail building is proposed at the northern corner of the lot, and a 14,157 square foot pharmacy featuring a drive-through window is proposed at the southern portion of the lot. The project includes the reconfiguration of parking and interior vehicle circulation, accommodations of additional 29 parking spaces for a total of 383 parking spaces. Adjust the location access point is off Bridge Street and provides additional landscaping throughout the site. The site is located in a regional retail zoning district and requires site plan review under section 11.4 of the zoning code. Earlier today, I did receive communication from our associate planner, Aaron Clausen, who's here with us this evening. He indicated that after they reviewed the plans, Market Basket and the Division of Plan and Develop were informed that advertisements was in the local paper and that notices did go out to the abutting people who lived in the city of Lowell. However, notices were not sent to the people who abutted that lived in the Dracut area. Upon hearing that, we were informed that the matter tonight, that the applicant from Valley Properties would be present. Upon hearing that the matter could not go forward this evening, what I did is I called the neighborhood representative, being Anne Marie Page, and indicated to her that the meeting would not be allowed to go forward tonight. She indicated to me that they did have a neighborhood business association meeting this evening that was going to be meeting, and I told her that most likely that we would continue to our next meeting that is scheduled for August 18th. So, as required under the law, that notices could be sent out to the people who abut this project in Dracut. So saying then that, I know that we do have the applicant here, so I will hear from the applicant. And correct me if I misspoke on anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, sir.
Jim Lamp from J&Co, representing Valley Properties. Everything you said is correct. We had the unfortunate error of not notifying all the abutters. We're getting the certified list this week. We'll get the abutter notifications out properly for the 18th meeting. The timing probably works well. We're still working on architecturals on the Walgreens portion of the project, and we're addressing city comments, and we have not received all the city comments back at this date. So it will hopefully allow us to address those comments prior to the next hearing and have everything in order for that August 18th.
Thank you, sir. Having that said, I requested we have a motion to continue to our next meeting, be August 18th, 08, for the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And as indicated, I did tell Ms. Page, who's at the Neighborhood Association meeting tonight, that it would be August 18th. She would have indicated to me she would let all the neighbors who were at that meeting as well know it's on for the August 18th meeting. So, thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before you leave, sir, I think your point was good, that this also buys you some time to address some of the comments made by the DPD,
Yep.
because I think there were a lot of valid comments here about several things on the property, especially the positioning of that drugstore in the parking lot there with the the dumpster and the drive-through window kind of facing front. Hopefully that can all be addressed when we come back again.
Yes, actually, in the interim from the first meeting where we had a preliminary discussion with you, we've actually met with staff and also met with the neighborhood on, I believe, the 9th of July. So we sat down with the neighborhood group, got their comments. It will allow us to address their thoughts. We also sent out a mailing to everybody who was noticed for this hearing to let them know that it would be postponed to the 18th. It was just a courtesy letter, but we hopefully hit everybody that had gotten those notifications and apologized for the inconvenience.
Great.
So-
The other thing was I noticed that you are applying for a variance on the landscaping ordinances, and it seemed like that parking lot was big enough that, you don't have to respond to it now, but that was a concern of mine coming into the meeting, that why would we need variances on the landscaping ordinances when we have plenty of room for parking there, and seems like we could easily address all the issues.
I hear you on that. I think that the issue is really, there is a needed parking count for the tenant, being Market Basket, to be able to go forward. The ordinance requires a certain number of trees, and a tree to be within 50 feet of each tree in the parking lot. So you really have to, a large parking lot like this, it's almost it's physically very difficult to put trees at 50 foot on center, especially when you have aisles that are 60 feet wide. We've met the tree count. There's a required tree count. There's an interior parking space, open space requirement. We've met that. We just aren't able to put the trees at that 50-foot spacing, creating a grid work through the parking lot.
We can talk about that at the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is actually, we believe, one more variance that we will also be applying for in the interim, which is something I think we all missed on the curb cut width, where there's a requirement at the street curb line of, was it 28 feet, Aaron?
32.
32. And with the radiuses, there's no way a development like this can meet those. So that will also be brought before the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you on August 18th. Thank you very much. The next matter on the agenda is 1782 Middlesex Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Basil and Joanne Manasaris for site plan review for a project located at the address listed above. The project proposes to raise 3 existing buildings, 2 of which are single-family residents, one located at 6 Wood Street, and the other 17-19 Columbia Street. The other building to be raised is the beauty salon located at 1782 Middlesex Street. Redevelopment of this site includes 7,500 square foot commercial building, providing 5 storefronts, each approximately 1,200 square feet in size. The project spreads 26 parking spaces over 2 lots, one with access from Wood Street and Middlesex Street, providing 18 spaces, and the other access from Columbia Street with 8 spaces. The project is located in the Regional Retail Zoning District and requires site plan review under Section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Attorney James A. Hall, and I represent the petitioners in this matter. And just by way of background, I'm sure all the members of the board will recall that we were before this board approximately 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago with this plan. The plan gained approval. And it was only after the plan had gained approval did we realize that some of the neighbors were upset about the plan. And rightfully so. Our first initial petition covered just the Wood Street, Middlesex Street property. If the board will recall, in order to accommodate more parking, my client was able to acquire a lot to the rear of that on Columbia Street. And really, not substantially, but did make a good bit of a change to our original proposal. And one of them that really upset the neighbors was that there'd be access onto Columbia Street. Just by the physical nature of the layout, if you recall, the building abutted up to the Wood Street side of the lot. The only way you could ingress and egress that lot was onto Columbia. We met with them on site with Attorney Curtis and many of his clients, and my client determined very early on that it wasn't fair for us to go through with this process as we did. He instructed me to write a letter to the planning board to withdraw our previous petition, which we did. And we're now back before the board now, and some of the neighbors are here so that they'll have an opportunity to voice their concerns to the board, which is really the only fair thing to do. So we're back again with exactly the same proposal. Nothing has changed in our plan but the date. So we have exactly what was before the board 6 weeks ago. We're presenting it as we had presented it before and as it was approved. I don't know if the board would like us to add any more to what we have. I think you're familiar with our construction, the retail operation. There'd be no restaurants, if you recall. There was some discussion about that. It'd be really retail business of a small sort. We had plenty of parking. We had 26 parking spaces. I think we initially only had about 18 or 19. We have more than enough parking to meet all the requirements, and we feel, as presented, it meets all of the requirements of site plan review. But since that date, there have been some further review by the professional staff. There have been 3 or 4 suggestions. I had hoped that Mr. Close would be here to address them, but he's, I guess, evidently en route. From our cursory look of this and going over it with the project manager, Mr. Gaudet, I don't think we have any problem in agreeing to those 4 additional suggestions. One with respect to snow storage, one with signage so that only employees could actually park on Columbia. There'd be no customers parking over there. I don't have the other 2. I think one was a light on the building. And also an addition of a sidewalk which would head the northerly portion of the parking lot that has the 8 or 9 spaces, so there'd actually be a sidewalk there, which is acceptable to my client. So as it's presented and with the suggested changes, which we had agreed to, I'd be prepared to take any questions from the board at this time.
So just let me back up a little bit. In regards to, so you did address some of the comments that were given to us, to you by Division Planning and Development, talked about the snow storage and the signalization?
We have not done that on the plan. We would have to incorporate that on our final plan. We just received these, I believe, handed to me today, before the meeting. I don't know how long the petitioners had it, but I just became aware of it about 15 minutes ago. But we'd be happy to make those changes on the plan.
And the other one, I don't know if you had a chance to see that one, I think you mentioned it, was the one from Traffic Engineering, which was about the parking lot and the lighting. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, there were
Okay.
2, yes. There seem to be 4 suggestions.
Okay. And the one that talks about the sidewalk talks about the, the one that talks about the parking lot has the sidewalk, and that's not an issue either at this time?
That's not an issue at this time. No.
Right.
I'd like to speak with Mr. Close about it, but
Okay.
in talking to Mr. Gaudet, he feels that it's not an issue. If it is, we'll have to come back to the board in the next meeting.
Right. Anything else, Counselor?
At this time, no, unless
Okay.
there are some questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody here? Anybody like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? If you could come to the microphone, please state the name and address, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Gregory Curtis. I'm with the law firm of Goldman & Curtis, 144 Merrimack Street in Lowell. Here tonight representing several of the residents on Columbia Street, which would abut this proposed parking lot that has been included in this plan before the board. Just to go back a little bit, and the board is very well aware of it, there were several residents that were concerned about any type of entrance for a parking lot onto Columbia Street. They weren't made aware of that situation by the developer and were home watching on TV at the last meeting when they found out that there was going to be an entrance allowed for an auxiliary parking lot for employees on Columbia Street. They weren't happy about it. We approached Mr. Hall. We had a meeting out at the site to try to discuss some sort of alternative. I think the board and the city is very aware of the difficulties that we have on Columbia Street with regards to the narrowness of the street. There are no sidewalks. It's really a cut-through street for many of the traffic concerns that are on Wood Street and Middlesex Street. you have people at different hours of the day trying to cut through Columbia Street to try to beat the traffic or alleviate going around the traffic. Some of the people, one that I represent, Persephone Garris at 14 Columbia Street. She's 92 years old. She's been living there for the last 20 years, along with her daughter that lives next door for the last 30 years. And they're very concerned. They're concerned that having any type of access onto Columbia Street from the development would just encourage people for the traffic flow going to that development. I know they included in one of the in the last decision that they were going to restrict it to employee parking, but that's very difficult unless there was some sort of mechanism, a electronic gate as you would have in one of the parking garages with people with pass cards. It's very difficult to control how people are going to go in and out of that location. As was shown in just recently, we have a very busy intersection at Middlesex and Branch. It's a dangerous intersection. Trying to alleviate traffic concerns by putting a parking lot on Columbia does really no good for the neighborhood. It is a residential neighborhood for the most part. That area has kind of been rezoned over the years to different degrees coming off of Middlesex Street as you go up to Wood Street. But, we feel at this time that the only alternative would be to we have no objection to allowing the parking lot on Columbia. We just have an objection to allowing an entrance from Columbia, that the developer could recalculate the plan to allow a driveway coming in from Wood Street to go around the building and allow that employee parking on that site. There's no need to have an exit or an egress from the parking lot out to Columbia Street. There is some discussion about that parcel of land. That parcel of land basically was split. This is the parcel that was acquired a little less than a month before the last meeting by the applicant to allow for this parking lot to be constructed. That parcel is half in residential zone, I think it's a TS zone or single family, traditional single family, and then the remaining is the RR zone. Our feeling, another alternative that could be proposed is to extend that 25-foot zone, which is the remaining portion in a traditional single family, to an RR zone, to give them a little more room on that plan to then come around that building and allow that employee parking in the back without any need at all for vehicle traffic coming out onto Columbia. We not only would be looking at substantial vehicle traffic, we don't know how many, they said 8 spaces, but you have people coming and going, even if they're employees. You also have maybe a waste management truck or delivery trucks, and different trucks are going to be coming back and forth through that area. It's a very tight turn. You have a huge, I don't know if on the plan it shows, a 5-foot diameter tree that is at that site. It makes a nice block of your vision coming out of that existing home where they're proposing the parking lot. So we really feel strongly that this project can work. It looks like a very nice project the way they proposed it, but we're a little disappointed that we did not have the opportunity back in May to be before the board and have all the residents come here to make their objections known as to the entrance for that parking lot being on Columbia. So we hope the board can take that into consideration. The other, the issues talking about neighborhood, when you have cars coming out of this parking lot, they're going to be focusing headlights at night right into Mrs. Garris's house. Also turning the corner, you have Kula Ryan, who is next door to her 92-year-old mother, who does not have a driveway. So she has to park her car basically on the street at night, and that car has been hit several times by other vehicles coming up and down the street. You have problems when there's people using the park. They park on that street all the time, and it's just very congested. It's very narrow, and I think the board should relook at that whole issue of a parking lot exit or entrance on Columbia Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Good afternoon or evening. My name is George Garris, and I live in Lowell on Sedalia Drive. And I'm very concerned about this whole situation because Columbia Street is a very narrow road. And I have my mother, who is 92 years old, and lives right across that property that they want to build their parking lot. And to me, it doesn't look very feasible to have people coming into Columbia Street, which is a residential area. And a lot of people, we were very concerned about it, and my mother was very upset about it. And also, I have my sister that lives right next to my mother, and they have a real nice property. And by doing that on Columbia Street, by having people coming into Columbia Street, yeah, I don't know, it's up to you to decide what you have to do, and we had the lawyers and make statements, and hopefully the right thing can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Fuse, and I live at 23 Columbia Street, which directly abuts the property where they want to develop this commercial business. I've lived at 23 Columbia Street since 1992, and when I bought that property, I bought it with the understanding that it was zoned business, because I'm an upholsterer by trade and I wanted to open up a business there. But I come to find out that it's not zoned. But putting that aside, I really don't have any problems with a person trying to better his business or, improve his property or, make a better living. What I'm concerned about is two things: water and my privacy. As far as I know, they don't want to put a fence up, or they want to put shrubs or something like that. I mean, my kitchen is only going to be 25 feet maybe away from this property. And when they built Dental Dreams, which is in back of my house, they put a nice wall, a retaining wall, and on top of that retaining wall, they put a nice chain link fence with slats in it. It's very, very nice, clean, and it keeps water from coming into my property. I am the lowest property on the street, and all the runoff, during the winter, when the heavy rains come, all the water goes into one sewer on Columbia Street. From the tip of Middlesex, from the apartments across the street, there's an amazing amount of water that one sewer takes. And that's a problem, because when we have these flash rains, my toilets back up because it can't take the water. But, even that, if they were willing to extend that wall in the back of my house, bring it over to the abutter where his property line starts, and then come up along my driveway with a wall and the same fence, same type of fence, I wouldn't have any problems with what they're proposing to do. An exit and an egress on Columbia Street is, as far as I'm concerned, we're supposed to live in a single-family residential neighborhood, and we're being kind of swallowed up by commercial, properties. And, the street is bad. We got traffic going down here 50, 60 miles an hour sometimes, cutting through Midway Car Center to dodge a traffic, jam, going through the cutting through the hairdressing place, cutting across Middlesex, Columbia to get to Princeton Boulevard, or coming the other way to go to Middlesex Street to try to beat traffic. It's terrible, terrible. If only somebody could get down there and just park there, between, 3:30 and 6 o'clock and see the activity. It's unbelievable. And it's, second or third worst intersection in the city, with it, as far as accidents and everything. So every business that develops and grows creates more traffic. And that's our big concern. And we like to keep our street a residential street. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Anybody else like to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am, if you...
Yes, I'm Renee Hill Gasley from the Highlands Neighborhood Association. I'm here to, many neighbors have called me in this area, and I've had several meetings with the developers in the city with the Walgreens project, which is still on the board, on the planning board. I'm here just as a concerned representative for the neighbors that live in that area that have come to me with their concerns about their quality of life that they see changing. With the residential zoning changing to commercial, there's this concern as well as the Walgreens in the future that's still in the planning stages. And they're very concerned about the traffic that's already horrendous and using cut through their streets. They're very concerned about the floodplain, water coming in when there's more development and hot topping. So safety, their children, several concerns. I'm just coming here tonight to say that you should be very conscious of the quality of life in which you're making in that area. And that's what I really wanted to make you aware of, is that I see a lot of this in the city. The quality of life is changing, and I wouldn't say in some areas for the better. So I think we should be mindful of this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn over to any questions. Yeah, that's it. Mr. Hall, I noticed that your engineer has come, he's here now. I don't know if there's anything that you want him to address on the plan now. If not, I'll just turn over to the board members. Is there anything particularly that you want him to address? Okay. Okay. At this point in time, any of the board members have any questions or concerns? Mr. Genvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question to Mr. Hall. Mr. Hall, you mentioned that you had spoken with the neighbors about the egress and entrance on Columbia Street. Was there any, room for negotiation on that item?
There really isn't. We did have a suggestion to come off of Middlesex Street through the abutters property, but that was not possible. We looked into that. Problem is, our building really goes beyond the 50-foot part of that 75-foot lot that's commercial. So that, I mean, it would take out a good-sized chunk of the building just to be able to access back through that way. We might have another alternative that, if you want me to go forward on your question, it might be beyond the question of to resolve it. I've talked to Attorney Curtis, and this lot is 75 feet of frontage on Columbia, 50 commercially zoned, 25 residential. And I think Mr. Fuse is correct. Back in the 90s, this whole lot was commercial, and his lot was commercial. But we had something done about 4 years ago, I think, maybe Aaron could confirm that kind of changed that situation. It actually went right through a third of our lot. So there's been some discussion with Attorney Curtis and with my client that possibly we could rezone that 25 feet of residential so that the whole lot would be commercial. That would get us further down in the back of the building. We'd still have to cut a chunk off of that building to actually get into it, which my client would be willing to do. He wouldn't have to knock off 2,000 square feet. He might have to knock off 400 or 500 square feet. And he could access from Wood Street and put a fence or shrubbery on Columbia so that there'd be no ingress or egress on Columbia Street. That's probably the optimum solution to this whole plan. I think it meets my client's concerns. It certainly meets the Columbia Street concerns. I don't know, I think Tom would have to speak for himself. Mr. Fuse, we did talk to Mr. Fuse about putting that wall, continuing along the dental and bringing it down along his property, which we've agreed to do. So I think if the board is interested in trying to look into this, or us to look into it further, I think we'd have to ask for a continuance to sit down with Attorney Curtis. I think he could speak for himself tonight. I think he would hopefully agree that that's the way his clients would like to go. I'd have to talk further with Mr. Fuse. I think he would probably agree, but he can speak for himself. And if we could rezone that final 25 feet, which used to be commercial anyways, and further down beyond Mr. Fuse's property, then we get a shot out to Wood Street, by only losing a little bit of the corner of the building. Actually, it'd be a diagonal cut through the building.
So, I'm certainly, frankly, as is, for one, I am not prepared to vote to approve this tonight. But I am certainly willing to allow you, vote for a continuance so you can go back to the drawing board and see if you can come up with something that meets everybody's needs. My concerns, I think were stated by the neighbors here, and it's around protecting neighborhoods. I think we have a responsibility in Lowell here to protect our neighborhoods, keep them livable, keep them as safe as possible, keep them as quiet as possible, keep them as livable as possible. If we continue to let them get nibbled away at, bit by bit, then pretty soon there's not going to be any neighborhoods where anybody's going to want to live anymore. And our city will not be what it is today. It won't be growing in the direction we want it to grow in. Instead, it'll be deteriorating. And I think that's been the reason in history why Lowell has been able to stay above water, because we're able to protect our neighborhoods enough where people want to stay here and live here, raise families here, pay taxes here. And little by little, we can't let them deteriorate. I've seen it happen, a neighborhood I grew up in. It was in a busy area, quiet area, but the streets were quiet. The streets were protected and quiet. We let one business come in, nibble away, and then entire streets are thrown into turmoil, and, nobody wants to live there anymore. And it can happen little by little. So I think this falls into that category. We need to be very careful about how we do this. When you guys first came into us, I think most of the board here all said, I think the quote was, less is more. I think somebody said less is more. And I think the implication was we are all in favor. This is also a gateway to the city, and we're all in favor of seeing this lot cleaned up. And we want you to be successful on this lot. However, if you try to jam too much of it into it and not have enough parking, we're going to be sorry, because we're going to make it into a mess right here in this gateway, in this extremely busy intersection. And this was rated by the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments as the second worst in Northern Middlesex County, second worst intersection in Northern Middlesex County, second only to Bridge and the VFW Highway, which I heard over the weekend on the radio was rated as the worst in the state. So this is very likely the second worst intersection in the state for traffic. That's why all these streets around here have people trying to cut through this intersection. We have a real mess on our hands in this intersection. So I think this lot is, I, for one, am extremely sensitive to this lot in this area. So I think we need to be careful what we do. So that's my feeling. I personally would like to see you scale back the building and make all the parking you need on that lot, but I know that's not what you want to do, and I'm open to other ideas, but not if it means we're going to have all that traffic coming in and out on Columbia Street. So if you want to request a continuance and go back to the drawing board, see if you can negotiate something that meets the neighbors' concerns and eliminates that egress onto Columbia Street, then I'm certainly in favor of that.
Just so I could make the record clear, we would lay this on the table. This is our proposal. If we can't rezone that 25 feet, we would come back with the same proposal. That's what our position is. Not to be blunt, but we would do this if we can't rezone that little 25-foot strip. And just to go back what Mr. Gendron said earlier, when less is better, and all of that talk went on. My client went out and stepped up and bought this 75,000 square foot piece of property with a dilapidated building and barn falling down for $250,000, just so he could increase his parking requirements by 9 parking spaces, when in my belief he had enough parking to begin with. So he's really stepped up to the line, I think, to spend that kind of money to meet a concern of the board. I mean, he didn't just willy-nilly just say, this is what I want to do. He actually put his money where his mouth is. And he has now, I think, 26 parking spaces there, and I think the requirement, and Aaron could correct me, is probably 17 or something in that area. So he's, I don't know, he's done quite a bit. I think it's, at least from my point of view, it's after hearing Attorney Curtis and his clients, if we could continue this matter by agreement with the neighbors and ourselves and try to make this project a better project by rezoning that 25-foot strip, then I think it's well worth the chance that it would be the best project for the neighborhood. But I don't want to delude anyone here or misrepresent my client's position. If that's turned down by the city council, we would have to come back with this. In fact, it'd still be here, it would be continued. We would come back with this, and certainly the board can do anything they want, but we're not going to tweak it or do any other stuff. This is a major, major endeavor for engineering costs, delay. This is now into about a 6 month, it'll probably be another 4 or 5 months. I think it's a major step to go along with the neighbors. If the board doesn't want to do that, then we'd just go forward. I think it's a solution that we should look at, though.
So I can appreciate what your client has done, and I do. And I think, as I said, development of this lot would be a good thing for the city, because right now it needs, you know, to be updated. So I think personally that would be a better solution, because then you'd have all the traffic coming in and out of the main lot, right? You wouldn't have people trying to, needing to go around onto Columbia Street to access the lot. Everybody could come in and out of the main entrance and exits, and they could access all the parking on the lot, and there wouldn't be this divided situation. It seems kind of, like a Band-Aid here. So I, for one, would rather see you do that. I'd rather see you request a continuance. I'd certainly support that, and go and see if you can get that strip rezoned.
Thank you.
Mr. Fischett?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to ask Aaron a question, and I know the challenge is that the lot on Columbia Street is not entirely zone R&R. Is there a possibility, because if you rezone that strip, now you have a larger lot that's zone R&R on Columbia Street, and if this project didn't go through, you actually have now a larger retail lot on Columbia Street. Would it, through the Zoning Board of Appeals, could they accomplish the same thing and still keep that lot zoned the way it is? Or does...
No, for them to get that portion of the parcel, that 25-foot frontage parcel on Columbia, they would have to go through a legislative process with the city council to get that rezoned. The Zoning Board of Appeals cannot provide a use variance in the city, so that really that if they want to use that or get that rezoned as a regional retail, they'd have to go through the process of petitioning the city council for that extension. And then, as you probably know, the city council would then refer to the planning board for recommendation. Planning board would then have a public hearing.
But I'm sorry, Aaron, but even just to access, just to cut across that to get to that parking area back there? So my concern is well-intentioned as it is, and your client is we rezone that, and now you actually have a larger lot that invades the neighborhood more.
Right.
That's R&R, and I just, is there a way of getting around that for just being able to, at the end of the day, it's just to be able to clip the corner of that to access the parking in the back?
They couldn't use that space for parking spaces. Now, as far as access, I'm not exactly sure whether or not they could just use that for a drive lane. Just looking at the plan right now, if they were to make that work where that is an access drive, and push up the building a little bit, that you may be getting into a situation where you lose the 4 parking spaces at the northern portion of this lot, and not really gain a whole lot on the other end. But To your question whether or not that can be used for an access drive, I'd have to look into that a little bit for you before I could give you a definitive answer on that. But that possibly could be an option that would be a little more simple than rezoning that site.
Exactly, and I appreciate the offer of the solution, and even for the residents. I think that sounds like it's something that they're looking for, but there are other implications by rezoning that lot and now making that a larger R&R lot, and that's, if there's a way of addressing it without having to do that, I'd much rather see that avenue taken.
There's a case out in Drake about 40 years ago that ruled, the Supreme Judicial Court ruled you could not access commercial through a residential neighborhood. So the only, I think Mr. Aaron is correct, we can't utilize that for any commercial purpose. So I think it would be very hard pressed to come up with an artful way of getting around it without rezoning. There's several cases that are on point.
Yeah, my inclination is that it wouldn't be able to be used for an access drive. I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to check on it, but I would agree with Attorney Hall that most likely you wouldn't be able to use a residentially zoned parcel for access or parking. But
Well, certainly, I'm in agreement if the petitioner is willing to go back and sit with the residents, and the residents feel that that's an adequate solution and it works for everybody. I certainly would much rather see them come back with a plan that addresses those issues. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Lockhart, any question?
A comment and a few other points I'd like to bring up. I would be in favor of a continuance if you can, find other access into that lot and address the neighbors' concerns, and that, is of primary importance to me. So I would be in favor of a continuance. However, I do have a few concerns here that I think you need to address. One, Mr. Fuse is...
Tom Hughes, yep.
Pronouncing that right. If I didn't pronounce it right, I apologize. He brought up a point about water and drainage. If you're creating a parking lot over here and increasing the impervious space, then you need to provide something there for that. I didn't see anything in our documentation that addressed that, so I think you need to address that. On your application for site plan approval, there are a couple of points here under your brief summary of proposed work. Item A references an attached architectural rendering of the building. I don't have one here, and I think we really need one to see what this thing looks like. There's no rendering in our documentation. And under item E, and this has come up a couple of times before, it says the petitioner will construct a, no, that's not the right one, where is it? Item B, I'm sorry.
B.
The parking and loading complies with zoning. The development will provide for 20 parking spaces and 1 loading dock as per plan. There's no loading dock on the plan.
That's not correct, no.
Well, it's in the application, so it should be.
Yeah, I don't know how it got there, but we'll address
Just
that,
clarify
definitely.
it, that's all.
Definitely.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Claremont?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly would also support a continuance if you're willing to work with the neighbors to try and solve that issue of the access to Columbia Street. And I want to applaud the applicant, frankly. As we're looking at a site plan here, it's a site plan that on its face meets all site plan criteria for approval. But the applicant has gone above and beyond that and given us some auxiliary parking for employees, which we requested. They didn't have to do it, but they did do it. By doing so, they created a bit of a problem now on Columbia Street, which they are seeking to resolve. So I certainly would support a continuance. I'm always happy to have the applicants work with the neighborhood to see if a problem can be solved to everyone's mutual satisfaction. But again, I want to also thank the applicant for taking the extra step. And if we have a site plan that on its face meets all site plan criteria, our job is either to approve it or approve it with reasonable conditions. That's it. But they're taking the extra step, and I applaud them for that. I have no other comments except one, perhaps to Mr. Close, the engineer. There was something in here about possibly pushing forward the parking spaces on the Columbia Street lot to allow for a sidewalk at the head of all the parking spaces, but it's uncertain whether that would cause any problems with that parking area. Have you addressed that at all, or can you address that?
For the record, Ron Close, the engineer on this job. And your question is concerned with the Columbia Street parking area?
Right.
Could you repeat it one more time?
One of the comments, I think from Aaron, suggested with regard to that lot, that the parking spaces in the lot should be pushed forward to allow for a sidewalk at the head of all the parking spaces, providing a sidewalk in that lot. You may be reconfiguring it anyway once you meet with the neighbors, but if this plan were to come back in its configuration as it is now, if you were to move those spaces forward to allow for a sidewalk, would that create any issues for you in terms of getting in and out of that lot?
It appears we have the room to move some of the parking within limits, within reasonable limits. The only issue I could see, it'd be more impervious area, but it'd be minimal, if you were going to put a concrete and/or bituminous walk. Maybe just change the calcs minimally. And we do have a oversized subsurface detention area. Incidentally, that whole lot is designed to pick up all on-site drainage, so there shouldn't be any additional drainage going on to Mr. Fuse. In fact, it should reduce some of the drainage, being that it's going to stay on the site and then exit into the detention area over at Wood and Middlesex Street with an overflow into the city drainage. If in fact the system backed up for whatever reasons, it would overflow off-site into the existing drainage system. So I don't see too much problem with, I'm going to have to go through the notes, obviously, to see what the intent was, but we do have some room to play with on adjusting this parking area.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Close, while I have you, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Sure. They did talk about if they changed the zoning. Now, the question I have, if they change the zoning and they want to put a access way to have traffic come in Wood Street and reach the back lot instead of coming Columbia Street, I don't know how it's going to affect some of your engineering that's on site now. If you cut off the back of that building, is it going to affect the parking that's presently on that site? Is it going to affect your snow storage that you have, whether it'll cut through that area or you drop that down? Will you still enter and exit by the same curb cut? Or are you going to try to come down and enter up a whole new curb cut? And how will that traffic have any more impact on the front of Wood Street? So by sometimes creating something on the back part of the plot, a plan here, might affect something that might have, but put it this, if something affects the back door, it might affect the front door.
Everything you said will be taken into account. That's why we got to go back to the drawing board. Obviously, there's going to be more paved area. It's going to influence the size of the drainage system, the subsurface, the ingress and egress. That's going to have to be studied and engineered to accommodate the, as I see it, the neighbors' wishes, the board's wishes, and my client's wishes. So we'll try to take that all into fact. I can't answer that just offhand, but yes, everything looks like it's feasible. It's getting to the drawing board and getting some math done on the size of the system and how we're going to ingress and egress this lot.
Okay,
But they're good questions.
okay.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Mr. Close. Let me get back to Mr. Hall if I could. The question I was getting to, Mr. Hall, basically is if they were going to accommodate the back zone change with that drive coming through, would it still come in the same access, or it'd be another curb cut, and how would it affect the plan itself? You understand what I'm saying?
Would we have to change the curb cut, is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, would you come in the same way, or do you try to put a curb cut
I'd have to
down with it?
defer to Mr. Close, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
We'd be willing certainly to change if it doesn't line up.
Because I'm thinking if putting one down further might interfere with the snow storage and everything else. If you're gonna have to remove part of that back building, you might be able to have a driveway if it's, and my understanding is the back lot is only for employee parking, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So you'd have to put a whole new drive in, drop off part of the building, come around the building, maybe affect some of the snow storage, to pull up to the front and come out onto Wood Street for a total of 8 parking spaces.
Yeah, we'd have 8 parking spaces in the rear lot. I think the entrance and exit would probably remain the same.
Okay.
But we would take a diagonal, probably a triangular portion of the back building off, if you can envision it, it'd actually be sliced off the back, so that we at least get by it, and I think we'd then go right down the driveway access the way we have it now. Now, if we eliminate snow storage or something else, I don't remember.
Yeah, I
We'll have to
remember it
address
wasn't on
that.
plan before, and one of the question was, you were gonna truck it off, and then the board's requested it, you put it on, and then our request, you put it on.
We're definitely trucking it off. There's no doubt about it, but I'm certain we'll have snow storage there as requested the last time. We just have to look at it.
So let me just add further, I know there was an indication of whether to continue the matter, or to see if the matter could be rezoned, or to proceed further this evening. Let me just ask this to you, are you requesting that we can continue this matter?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think, unfortunately, our process, I've done it several times, might take 3, if not 4 months.
Right. The time you get, if you have to do it for a zone change, that's a conservative estimate.
So I don't know if I don't know, Aaron would probably know, it's usually 120 days that we have to, you people have, or 60, I don't know exactly what it would be to, I would be willing to send a letter to waive that requirement, as long as the neighbors were. I think they would have an interest here, that we would proceed as quickly as possible to get through the city council.
What happens is, under our rules and regulations, if we don't act on something in a period of time, it's deemed accepted. Which means if we continue this out too far, and it's not accepted to our board, then he gets this approved by operation of law without our consent. Correct?
We would waive that, though,
Okay.
in writing.
Thank you.
And we, Mr. Chairman, we would never do that to
I
you.
know, I'm just saying, I mean, the burden is for us to act. I mean,
You're
that's what the
correct.
zone- That's what the zoning requirements are, is to make the planning board do their job and vote on a petition one way or another. Because in the past, I'm not saying here, but as case law, as you know, and I know,
Right.
reading them, they continue them, and if you don't act on it properly, it's deemed
Absolutely.
accepted.
I've seen that, no.
And that's to either make the process work better for the city as well as the neighborhood. So if the applicant is willing to request a continuance, I have no problem with him following up with a letter. I think the hard part would be to try to pick a date certain, to try to allow the process to take its process to go through the requirement of the rezoning. And before I do that, do you mind if I just address Mr. Curtis for a second?
No, fine.
Okay. I'm just trying to see what Mr. Curtis's concerns are. If we continue for the rezoning, would that help solve some of the problem? Or if it doesn't, then we come back, we're still in the same situation we are
No,
now,
I
4 months later.
I have a strong feeling that if we can get the rezoning to take place at that 25 by 100, that 2,500 square feet would alleviate the problem that they're looking at, including maybe shifting that snow storage to the other side and allowing that parking lot to not have an egress or an ingress from Columbia Street. The other alternative would be for petitioner to withdraw it at this time and then go before and see if we can get a zoning change and then bring it back before the board so we don't run into a time constraint. We're not asking for that, but we would work with Mr. Hall. We have sat down with Attorney Hall, and the neighbors are more than willing to support the project. Our concern is with the safety, and as Mr. Gendron said, that whole area of a residential zone, that we just don't need an entrance coming out on Columbia Street. It's a safety hazard, and it's going to be a problem right down the line, so that's where we'll leave it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Curtis. Any of the board members have any further comment as a result of what I had to say?
Mr. Chairman, yes. I was wondering, would it be possible, and this may not be feasible, but would it be possible to divide the building? Like, take the larger office of this, there's 4 on my drawing here, but take the larger office and make it 2 separate structures so that you can access the rear parking lot without changing the zoning?
I think we looked at that. I don't know what the answer to the question was, but it was looked at through the last process that we did, and it was, I think, agreed, at least by the professionals that we had, that it wasn't in the best interest of the petitioner to do that. I think it just ate up too much of the parcel.
It's probably added expense to have 2 structures.
I think so, but we did look at that. I think someone did suggest that question earlier, and it had been looked at.
The reason I bring it up is, even if if you go and you get it rezoned, which you may or may not, right? You have to wait and see what happens there. Accessing that back parking lot is kind of awkward, right? Because it's twisting all the way around the building the way it is now. If you were to divide the building, and you could probably pick up more space here, because since you're adding more parking back here, you might be able to lose these parking spots on the north side of the building now, so you could even make that a little larger. Divide the building, make a straight shot from the entrance into the back parking lot. It would be less awkward. You wouldn't need the zoning change because you wouldn't be accessing commercial over residential. It would all be commercial. You could put parking spots on that residential piece. No? No, that's not allowed?
Can't park there, no. We wouldn't be able to park on the residential portion of that lot unless we got the rezoning.
Okay. Well, even if you didn't have that, you could probably reconfigure the parking where you had parking all along the backside of the Mr. Assad's property. Maybe pick up a few parking spots there, have snow storage over here. Just a thought. You might be able to, by dividing the building, I think you might be able to access the back parking lot, not have an egress on Columbia Street, and not have to go through the pain and time of a rezoning.
We'll certainly look into it.
Back up. If we continue the matter, one thing is, this plan will come back in front of us for the zoning change. Any zoning change that goes before the city council has to come before this planning board first by way of a recommendation. Whatever our recommendation is, it's non-binding by the council. So basically, if they do go to rezone the matter, there would be a public hearing back before this planning board, and we would make a recommendation either in favor or against. Then regardless of what our recommendation is, then it does go back to the city council. So procedurally wise, it has to go to council first, then the council has to recommend that it be sent to us, then it gets sent to us, we have to mark it up for public hearing. Once we act on the public hearing, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, does not matter, still goes back to the council, then they have their public hearing. Then at the end of their public hearing, if they allowed it, then we'd probably see a new plan. If they denied it, most likely we'd probably see the same plan.
That's right.
And then the matter would come back before us again for final vote. Okay.
That's correct. Yep.
So, I mean, if the motions, if people are comfortable with continuing it, I have no problem continuing the matter. Because if we can put it out for maybe approximately 3 or 4 month period, and what will also happen is, when it comes before us on zoning, at least we'll know what track it's on, and then we'll have a date pretty much certain when it's gonna come back before us to go back before the council, and at that point in time, if we knew that we were not on track to meet the 4 month date, we might be allowed at that point in time to consider changing that date, if that was acceptable to all parties. So at least, we'll see the matter again before it comes to the final.
Right.
So if you came before us and say, Mr. Delinehan and board members, we do believe we can meet the date within a 3 month period, we're still gonna stay with that, or we think due to the council schedule and getting the things before the council and their agenda, when they can entertain us or not, we might not meet the deadline, we might have to come in and ask for an extension. And if that was the case, I'd be willing to put it on the agenda that night and let people know that you are requesting the continuance, and obviously if you speak with Attorney Curtis with that, and people are agreeable with that, you can send us a letter to the record or so, or Mr. Curtis could be here as well as anybody else for that matter. And then if people are agreeable for the continuance, like we did earlier tonight for the other matter, we'll make all the people come down, come out of their homes, come down here to have the matter continued. So that's just some way of background discussion on what the procedure would be if we did continue it further out for the matter to go before the zoning. Saying that, how much time do you think would be appropriate? I mean, we're in,
I'd say 90 days.
It
At
would
least
put
we'll
you
be pretty
about
much through it.
October 20th.
Because 30 days.
120
Public hearing.
we do have a part of our schedule meeting here, and we do have October 20th. That's scheduled on Monday
You
night.
could do that, and we'll see where we're at. Yep.
Attorney Curtis, do you have any comment on that, for that date, if you may? If you have any concerns, I'd be more than happy, and the board members to listen to.
That makes sense. That would be the best alternative, hopefully, to get the parcel zone. It's going to come back before you anyway, then go back to the city council. If it
And then
looks
hopefully
like
it's
it's
on
working on track, then we can come back before you and maybe resolve it in one session.
I don't know if this would work, but if it would expedite the matter, sometimes we've been told, and we have had a joint public hearing with the city council on rezoning. Sometimes they invite us in here with them, sometimes they don't.
All right, okay, well, we'll leave it at that.
Let us
We
sit
can give,
over in the corner and we speak up once in a while. But-
and so you put a date of October 20th, is that the date you?
I think if
Yeah, that's a Monday, October
Monday.
20th.
people are willing to consider that, I'd be willing to have somebody entertain a motion to that effect. Hopefully that date would be agreeable, and hopefully the issues could be resolved to try to work further in the project to help better the concerns of all parties.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
interject, I'm certainly supportive of that. But would it make more sense to ask the applicant to withdraw? Are there negative aspects to that, and then see what
if they
happens with the rezoning?
If they
And
withdraw, they gotta advertise again, bring it all back up further. I mean, do all the publications all over again, put it back in the paper, do all the zoning parts.
Okay.
I mean, if the people are real, who have the major concerns, who are here and know the next future date, we could try to accommodate it that way as well. So we can do it either way. If the applicant is requesting to be continued, instead they have to come back, submit all the comments to the department heads again, submit the plan again, change the plan. I mean, if it doesn't pass the city council, then we don't plan on looking at basically unless there's any other amendments that
Right.
parties can agree to.
Well-
I mean, that's the only difference between a continuance and withdrawal.
it's up to you.
I mean, if
just
it's withdraw without
see-
prejudice, they can always bring it back.
Right.
Which prejudice, they have to wait a period of time. But if parties are willing to work on it, I have no problem either way to try to accommodate all parties, to keep it open, give a date certain. Attorney Curtis has no problem with it, I have no problem with it, obviously.
It's really up to the applicant, whichever way you want to do it. I don't think it,
Yeah.
if there's a withdrawal, then we don't have to worry about deadlines and
Right.
all that.
And then we'll ask for him to just submit the waiver if he would. Okay? So, Mr. Hall, I mean, the question is, would we be willing to maybe entertain a motion to continue to October 20th?
Absolutely, yes.
I would suggest is contingent upon that you send us a letter that we'll put in the file, give it within a week, to saying that you're in agreement to continue the matter out for public hearing at next state.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
All right, saying that, then, anybody like to make a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for the continuance of this hearing until October 20th.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
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 So now that the public hearing continues to that date, there will not be another advertisement in the paper, like there was twice already in this matter, and it will appear on the agenda that evening. If there is a change on that, we will try to notify all parties. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you very much.
Thank
And of course, the continuance is contingent upon the letter from Attorney Hall.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, all parties. Okay. Thank you. The next public hearing is 26 Highland Street. A public hearing will be held to hear all interested persons relative to an application by John McDonough, for site plan review and neighborhood character special permit. The proposal includes the construction of a two-family residential building located at the southern corner of the lot adjacent to Burn Street. The wooded area that currently exists on the proposed building site will be removed to make way for the residents. Paved area for parking and driveway access, and the expanded lawn area. Access to the site and vehicular circulation throughout the site remain virtually unchanged. The project is located in the traditional neighborhood multifamily zone and is on 83,261 square feet lot and requires a site plan review under section 11.4 and a neighborhood character special permit under section 9.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, before he starts his presentation, I do have to recuse myself on this issue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fischette.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Matt Hammer. I'm with Polaris Hancock Engineering. We're here before you this evening to request a neighborhood character special permit for section 9.4, as well as approval of our site plan for section 11.4 for 26 Highland Street for the McDonough family, which is, this property is located in a traditional neighborhood multifamily. And I have an aerial photograph of me this evening which shows the McDonough property, which is located here. Here's the funeral home. Here's an existing dwelling here. There's a pool and a few outbuildings, which are garages. We're proposing to put the proposed duplex back in this corner of the property. As you can see with this plan, there are a few multifamily buildings in this location, as well as multifamily buildings in this location behind the property, adjacent to Burns and South Highland Street. Previously, we've been before the board as an agenda item to show a preliminary plan to the board, in which we took some comments from them related to some landscaping that was requested along the rear of the property. So we've incorporated that into our plan. We've since have received approval from the Historic Board for this property being located in the South Common Historic District. And we met with them last Monday, and they approved this project. The proposed duplex is located here in orange, utilizing an access and use easement along this portion of the property to enter the rear, where there's a paved area which can accommodate the required parking. Before you also is some renderings that we've prepared showing the front of the duplex, which will be divided in half, one on each side. That duplex will face the pool area, which is existing on the property. And this is also the rear of the property where the paved area will be, showing two entrances on the rear. I would also like to note that this is a property that's going to be utilized by the entire family. The two of the sons, Joe and John, are going to be living in each of the duplexes. The newlyweds are here also this evening, John and Shannon, and they're excited to move into one of the units, and they're currently working with a modular company which is ready to start to deliver this building shortly. So I can take any comments from the board.
Thank you, sir. Anybody here like to speak in favor of this project?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. And I attended the Historic Board meeting last week, and I spoke in favor of it then. and I'm here tonight to speak also, again, in favor of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anybody else like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. I'll turn over to the board members. Mr. Lockhart, were you at the historic board meeting last week?
Yes, I wanted to address that.
Mr. Lockhart, just so people know, is on the planning board, we do have a representative of our board who does sit on the historic board, and I was going to have Mr., well, so that's why I'm going to start with Mr. Lockhart, since you mentioned the historic board.
Yeah, we did approve the project in its entirety, and we had considerable discussion about the architectural renderings and the materials that went into the building, and we all agreed that it was a very, very good job. And having said that, I would support certainly the special permit for the neighborhood character within the historical district. It's really a nice job. That was our conclusion.
Okay. Any other concerns or questions you have about the site plan tonight and the special permit?
Just about the number of trees that are coming down there, taking down a good quantity of trees
Yes, we are.
on the site. Have you looked at maybe populating other areas of the lot with additional trees to compensate for that in any way?
We are, sir. You can see the trees in here. I was actually over there this evening.
Right.
There's approximately 8 or 9 trees in there, which are located here. And they're mature trees, I should know. And what we're going to do is propose a row of trees here, as well as some around the corner here as well.
Same type of tree, or?
We're working on that right now, but I think we intend to put a fence along
Right,
with
so
some-
just in that corner, you're gonna?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Mr. Genman, any questions, concerns?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, the only access to this property will be this one here on Highland Street, the same one used by the existing dwelling, correct?
That's correct.
Is that the same access that's also used as an exit for the funeral home?
Well, right now, I don't know if you've been by there lately, but we've improved this entire access in here.
Mm-hmm.
So we've widened this per some of the comments from the fire department.
I see.
We were here before the board for a proposed addition behind the existing funeral home.
Right, right.
So they went ahead and did those improvements, even though they're not
I see.
constructing that addition at this point.
Okay,
So, but they will be utilizing this drive here mainly.
okay. So, two-way traffic, you can have two-way traffic on that entrance and exit to the funeral home now?
Yes, you can, right through here, yes.
Okay. All right. I, too, had the same concern as Mr. Lockhart with the removal of so many trees back there. I think that provides a certain amount of screening for that area. Looks like you have added some, but it also appears that that paved area back there is very large. Is there a reason why it's so large?
Well, we wanted to accommodate the parking for some cars, and they also wanted to have a nice play area for the kids back there, away from the funeral home itself.
Okay. And that garage will stay, the garage back there?
This one
Yeah.
will, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it would be nice to see, you replenish as many of the trees as possible back there, so that we don't, completely lose that screening effect. But those are all the comments I have.
I mean, related to that comment also, you have a land area per dwelling unit requirement, which typically is 4,500 square feet per dwelling unit, and this plan here is 17,000. So there is a significant amount of open space within the project itself, even though we're taking some trees down in this corner.
Thank you. Mr. Claremont, any?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had very little by way of comments or suggestions from any of the departments, just one from the water utility regarding the water line needs to be 2 1-inch lines rather than a 2-inch line. You'll take care of that in terms of the plan. I don't think we got any comments from the engineering department. Did you have any feedback from the engineer at all regarding this?
We met with the engineering department, discussed the type of drainage system that we were going to propose. We went ahead and designed an entire drainage system with the calculations, which was submitted, I believe, over 2 weeks ago. And we still have not received comments back from them. But we feel as though that they're going to be receptive to the design because we went through our entire design with them. And we also had done a design over here for the other project, so it was a similar design as well. So we feel very confident that they're going to approve that design.
Okay.
That could be a condition.
All right. Did you have any feedback from your neighbor to the south? It shows as a Mr. Ostland. It appears that the property there is right on the back property line. It's probably the most affected. Did you have any nothing whatsoever from the neighbor?
He hasn't shown up for any of the meetings, so. John might be able to.
No,
Could you just state your name?
John
for the audience,
McDonough.
please? Thank you, sir.
26 Highland Street. Haven't had any feedback from him at all in the years we've been there. We've always been pretty good neighbors with them. I walk my dog back there, and he has his dog back there, and just talk every once in a while. And I haven't seen him lately to mention it, but I don't see,
no conversation with him regarding this plan and the
no,
fact
nothing.
that
I haven't seen
parking
him
lots.
recently, so.
How wide is that buffer that you're going to be planting that trees, the row of trees?
That's the required 5 feet per the site plan regulations.
And the rest is all paved area in the back for how many vehicles? 4?
4 vehicles.
Okay. All right. Is there any reason in terms of the site that this couldn't be pushed further away from the property line? Or do you just want to maintain it as close to the line as possible? If that was pushed up another 5 feet, is that an issue for the site?
We could probably do that.
We could do that. The reason we just put it where it was, if you can see the garage next to it, I know it's on a different lot of land, but it kind of lines up with the front of that. So we just thought it would look best to have it even with that, but absolutely if you want it to be pushed up, it's absolutely something we'd be open to.
Concern with that back house is it appears it's right on the line. And if it's in fact right on the line, you have 5-foot row of trees. He's only 5 feet from your parking lot, a parking area there.
Yeah.
You haven't heard from him, but that doesn't.
Yeah, we'd definitely be open to that if you'd want us to move it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever you
That'd
want.
be the only suggestion. If
Sure.
that could be pushed back another 5 feet, give that a 10-foot buffer of trees and greenery there.
I think that's a good idea.
All right, that'd be
We can do
great.
that.
If we can incorporate that into the plan.
If you wanted to
that'd be
make that a condition, we most certainly
We'll do
could do that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Just to expand on that, I think it would benefit both of you for quiet and enjoyment if you're going to have children playing out there as well, especially if you're playing ball, chasing ball with the neighbors. That can be hectic at times. Sometimes you don't get the ball back, you know.
Yeah, we've had quite a
I've been
few
there on
go
that.
over both ways in my younger days, so.
Yeah. So besides that, I think it's a nice plan. I mean, I remember going up and it was either you or your brother who I met last year when you had the project going up through.
Yes, it was me.
yourself?
Yes.
And I remember meeting your dad up there. We
Yes.
looked at the other project, and that's when I realized how far back you own that property when your father took me back there and walked around everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be beneficial to have something back there because we really don't use the land for anything. And,
Because when you look at the site, you don't realize how deep back it
oh
goes.
yeah, it's everyone's usually surprised when they do see how much room we have back there to use. And we don't usually really use it, so this will be good to
Right.
use that space for something.
Right, yeah. Thank you. I have no further comments. This time I entertain a motion from the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve with 2 conditions. One, subject to approval of the drainage system by the engineering department, and that the rear buffer be expanded from the 5-foot shown on the plan to a 10-foot buffer.
Is it just the parking 5 feet, or you want to see the whole building and the parking?
Well, I don't know if you're going to be shrinking that parking. It's really the parking that I'm concerned about, because you want to keep the paving 10 feet away from the lot line.
We could shrink the parking too.
If you want to shrink
need
the
be.
parking, fine. If you want to move the building,
It was just
fine.
an estimate, really.
Yeah.
So whatever.
My suggested condition would just be that 10-foot buffer, planted buffer.
I think that's a good idea. I agree with what you said, Mr. Claremont, and shrinking the parking might not be a bad thing. It's a lot of pavement, you know?
Yeah, it was
But
just an estimate,
You
so,
don't need it, no.
kids like to play on the grass, too, so I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you could always do that.
yeah, that's fine. Absolutely, if that would be a condition to make the parking area a little smaller, that's absolutely fine
I think
with
the
us.
10-foot buffer
Yeah.
is an adequate contingency, and you can decide if you want to move it all forward or reduce the parking.
So the motion made, Mr. Chairman, you want to second that motion?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. So we have 4 in favor, none against, and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project, and
Thank you very
congratulations.
much. Thank you very much for your time.
Congratulations.
That covers the special permit.
Yes. And those motions were in regards to the special permit and the site plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you accept second on both special permit and site plan? Because we needed both on this.
Yes, yes.
So the vote's on both. 4, none against, and 1 abstention. Thank you. Thanks for that, Rich. That's about that one. I said thanks to mention that we need the special permit.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wrote it, but I didn't get back to it.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. Roll generals up? Yep.
General's up.
Well, you're setting up, going to read the advertisement if you don't mind? Our next public hearing is 295 Varnum Ave. This is Lowell General Hospital. A public hearing will be held to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Lowell General Hospital for site plan review of the development of property located at the above address. The proposal includes a 2-story addition to the existing 3-story, 238-space parking garage, providing an additional 112 spaces for a total of 370 parking spaces. The parking garage is intended to continue to serve the Lowell General Hospital campus. The site is located on a parcel consisting of approximately 64.55 acres and is located in the Planned Development Medical Institutional Zoning District. Site plan review is required under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jerry Foley from Belanger and Foley Incorporated, 55 Middlesex Street, North Chelmsford, Mass. Here to do a presentation. With me tonight, I have Wynn Brown, Kathy Langtang from Lowell General Hospital. Also, I have Sal Cavabianco, the architect for the project. I have Peter Tremblay, who is a contractor, and Kevin Hastings from Sullivan Co. Group. This is a project which has kind of been in the making for quite a while. You may recall a number of years ago we filed the first master plan for the planned medical development zoning. And at that time, we presented a plan which does show the garage as an existing 3-story with the potential for 5-story parking garage. They never knew if they were going to go through with it, looking at future plans and master planning, but they wanted to be able to do that. As such, what they did was they put in a foundation system that would accommodate another 2 stories. It's a structured parking with precast concrete. And so here we are now back to do this. There have been some changes in the zoning code since then that require site plan review. One of those is that any parking extension in excess of 14 spaces, which this will be, trips the site plan review process. We've submitted a narrative that kind of explains the reason for doing this. It's more of an enabling act for the hospital to do some future expansion as well. So the idea is to try to get some additional parking in place before they come back to you with additional plans for more expansion at the hospital site. And because this is doable at this point in time, and this structure is not inhabited, so it does not require any permission from the Department of Public Health, in terms of a determination of need. It's something they'd like to get going as soon as possible. Being in the PDMI zone, this does meet all the requirements of that zoning district. It's considered an accessory use. It has no restrictions on it other than the dimensional requirements in the PDMI zone. And since we're not expanding the footprint of the building in any direction, the only dimension that really comes into play is the vertical elevation of the building. That zone has a maximum height of 100 feet and 8 stories. We're proposing 55 feet and 5 stories total. The construction, as I stated earlier, will be all precast concrete. All the drainage and utilities are pretty much in place. We still have to verify a couple of those things with the fire department. We talked to the fire department today. Captain Weber indicated that we do have to put a standpipe in this building. There's no standpipe there now. It will be included as part of the new construction. So it'll be a dry system. In terms of the actual layout, because this is all staying within the footprint of the existing building, there'll be no new approaches required, no new entrances. Everything that's there on the ground will pretty much stay exactly the way it is. We're just plopping two more stories on top of this thing. We're going to add a total, and at the time we filed this, these were preliminary plans, but we're looking to add 132 more spaces. That might actually go down based upon meeting some other handicap parking criteria, but it won't be more than 132 spaces. We're still working the bugs out on that one just to make sure that we meet all the code compliance issues for the building. If I could just quickly flip through here. I know that snow storage and removal is always an issue. If you've been to the site at all, you may have noticed an area out here on the easterly side of the garage which is paved but not covered. This is a reserved parking area for doctors that sometimes is used, sometimes is not. What's done, or will be done, and is done now, I guess to some degree, during snow, which primarily only hits the top floor, a small front-end loader is used to dump the snow over the side down to ground level where they can pick it up and put it on a truck and get it out of there. So that process will continue. And during snowstorms, that just won't be available for parking for the doctors. They'll have to make other accommodations. This is probably the easiest site plan rendering I've had to do. We're not doing anything different than what you see there now. There will be some staging out here and on the side. So what they're going to do is they're going to remove any landscaping that could potentially get damaged and put it back if they can salvage it. If not, they're going to replace it in kind. Again, this is just another photo of the building in case you weren't familiar with it, but I'm pretty sure everybody's had to go to the hospital for some reason or other. I'm not the expert here on the building itself. If you have any questions on the building, Mr. Capabianco could certainly answer them for you. Any questions specific to code requirements other than zoning, Kevin Hastings can take care of that as well. Any questions about the operations, I'm sure Wynn or Kathy can take care of those. Thank you very much.
While I have you, I just have 2 comments, if I may. One, we did receive a email today back from Captain Weber from the fire department, and I don't know if you're privy to this. It does say that all looks good, just to comment on Lowell General Hospital parking garage. There needs to be standpipes on each level of the parking garage for the fire department to hook up to in case we have a car fire in the garage. These should already be in place. They would just have to be extended from the new levels. If they do not have them, they will need to be installed. Do you have a problem with that, or you understand what he's requesting on that?
Yes, yep, we talked with them this afternoon by phone.
Okay, so after you spoke with him, this is when I didn't know if you talked to him before or after we received it.
I talked to him around 4 o'clock.
3:58, so it must have been right thereafter. Okay, so you have no problem with that. We did receive most of the department comments back. The only one we did not receive in writing that I see now was the engineer department. Do you have any communication with them, or if you have any, do they have any problems with anything? If not, we could do a conditional thereof.
Yeah, I'd certainly make it conditional because we're simply not proposing any real site improvements at this time.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for answering my question.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant before I turn it over to the public? Does anybody else with you want to speak, or?
I'm giving you the Marcel.
As they say, we take silence as it means no. Okay. Okay, therefore, I'm going to turn it over to the public. Anybody like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition of this project? In opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any questions or comments from any of the board members. Mr. Claremont, can I start with you first?
Sure, just briefly, it's great they're able to, add the additional space without affecting your lot just by going up. So, I didn't know if you mentioned this, Jerry, but are you able to utilize the garage during construction, or is that going to have to stop for a period?
Yeah, there'll be some stages of utilization of that garage, but on the safe side, the hospital is going to work out some arrangements with off-site parking and shuttle service. I guess in the past, they've relied on the Elks to help them out with that. So again, there's going to be some coordination. I think as the project gets going, there'll still be some limited use of the parking areas. Once they get the staging done, they'll know what they can occupy or what they can't occupy, and then they'll have to take care of the remainder with shuttle parking.
How long of a construction process do you anticipate?
4 to 5 months.
I have no other questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Claremont. Mr. Lockhart, any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Fischett?
Mr. Chairman, I just briefly, I was looking at the what was submitted, also the materials. It's going to be consistent with what's currently there. I know DPD had, Aaron had comments, and I know there's a bike rack that's currently there in the parking garage when you first pull in. There's a, to the left, it's, but I know he mentioned possibility of even elaborating a little bit on that, form of lockers or loops, effectively removing the hurdle. Is any plans to enhance that a little bit? And I don't even know if it's being used currently, but I know in other developments, we're trying to at least provide for either pedestrian use or, through bicycle use. I'm just curious if
I guess that would come down to a question of space. Sal, I don't know, would there be additional space for bike racks?
You could just state your name, please. Thank you.
Hi, Wynn Brown, Vice President, Lowell General Hospital. Good evening, gentlemen. We actually have a green team on campus that one of the things that they've been looking at is actually expanded bike parking and locked bike parking inside of a cage setup so that people can have security of their bikes as we encourage people to commute differently to the hospital. So that is something that's under discussion with staff at the hospital right now.
Thank you, sir.
the with the
I'm sorry.
with the new garage. When I'm sorry,
Sorry.
does it look like there's going to be? I'm sorry. Does it look like there's going to be space for that? Or I know that you say they're looking at it, but
In the garage?
yes.
Yeah, there's still space. One of the things we might decide to do is actually take one of the parking spaces and use that for bike parking, which is what a number of other communities and parking garages do right now to encourage commuting and keep the bikes covered. We have actually put 2 new bike racks on campus recently just to promote that, but we've talked about having covered parking for bikes to make it more enticing for people to do that instead of having their bikes outside in the weather.
So if we made that a condition, that would be something that you're looking at incorporating in here?
If that's something you felt you needed to do, we would be happy to take a look at that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Gentleman, any questions, concerns?
Just a quick one. There's no elevator in this parking garage, correct?
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is?
Yep.
So the elevator obviously will
be extended,
Be
right.
extended.
Mhm.
Okay, great, thanks.
I have no comments. I think the fact that you go right on top of the existing parking, I have no concerns. Probably the best place to put it, really. Nowhere else to put it. I know when this came in years ago, the chances are, like you said, in your master plan, it's consistent with the master plan that you have out there. I know you've added other parking a few years ago over to the left for the employees. So I think it's a good plan. Like I said, the only comment, we didn't have any from the city engineer. If maybe if the board's in favor to vote in favor of this, maybe just condition upon that in case of they have some comment that they didn't have a chance to forward to us. That's a concern. That's why you have to get a chance to speak with them. Usually, what concerns they have. Maybe they just have a chance to comment back. I did address that early in the day with Aaron. He indicated that they did look at the plan, but other time constraints with another project, they never had time to give it back to us back in writing. So.
Yeah, normally the biggest issue is stormwater drainage, but since we're not expanding the footprint of the building, we don't really need to meet those stormwater standards, so.
Thank you. Having no further comments, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan with a couple of conditions, the first being the approval of the engineering department, and secondly, just consideration to approve facility for bicycle accommodation.
And one other condition I could suggest it is that the standpipe be added pursuant to the request of the fire department.
Yeah, yeah, great,
So
that's great.
Okay, is that acceptable? So the three conditions would be for the city engineer, to give consideration for the bicycle spaces and to address the comment on the fire department letter. Okay, there's a motion made with three conditions. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion's made and seconded by Mr. Fischett. All board members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Anybody again in opposition? Hearing none, the vote carries 5 in favor and none against. Good luck, wish you well with your project.
Thank you very much. Aaron, thank you.
Good luck, Jerry. You're welcome.
Yeah, nice.
Jerry, I told him it has to be made out of steel, right?
Moving along, we have nothing on the agenda on the new business besides the public hearings just conducted. On old business, we do have listed here a matter for 117 Marginal Street. The planning board will review proposed solution for the application for the project located at 117 Marginal Street with respect to conditions 6 and 7 of the approved site plan. Specifically, the applicant seeks to address concerns from the city engineer and the wastewater utility over sewage overflow that periodically occurs in the area on western entrance to the site. As you know, this matter's been before us for approval. We approved, I believe it was a year ago. I believe Aaron was kind enough to give us the minutes for the meeting that took place back on April 2008 with the conditions that we imposed. And then most recently, I believe in the last month or two, the matter came back before us and they received a favorable reply by the board to construct it in 2 phases. So at this point in time, I believe the condition came up with basically the stormwater sewage overflow. As a result of that, Aaron did give us some letters that did go back and forth between Mr. McCutcheon as well as meeting with the other city departments, where we do have a copy of that CC letter to us. And I know Attorney Flood's here. We asked him to come forward tonight in regards to this to address some of the meetings that were held and the concerns on the sewer overflow on the site. And basically, I believe from the vote when we approved this matter back on April 7th, 08, 2 of the conditions that we're concerned about was, and I did outline them here, the one for the wastewater. And hearing that, Attorney Flood, you want to comment further before we go further?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, Lowell, representing Brassi Development. With me tonight are 2 of the principals in the development, Jim McClutcheon and Dennis Scannell. They probably know more about what's going on than I do, but I was on vacation last week, and I know there's been some meetings held, and the major issue has to do with the stormwater, the backup on the portion of Marginal Street, which is our entrance to the site. I just want to make it clear that this isn't one of our problems, this is a city problem, and the backup has to do from the sewer on Middlesex Street that backs up into that area. So, our engineer, Jack Luigi, has been working on it, and my understanding, they had a meeting last week, and they thought that everything had been resolved. What they had proposed to do was to install an alarm within their sewer connection manhole on site, and I think it's at elevation 44. I think it's 46 outside, 44 inside, 44 inside, which when there would be a backup in the existing sewer line, this would kick off the alarm. When that alarm goes off, what they are agreeable to do, they will have security there 24/7, is they will go out and they will close off the entrance to the development that's presently by the car wash on that section, and open a gate for emergency purposes on the other side. Now, the reason we're proposing that, because I really feel if we came in the other way, we might have to go to another public hearing, and I don't want to do that. And the project was proposed this way. I think it satisfies the concern. We will not be passing through that sewerage on the way out. It'll be blocked. It's my understanding it might happen 4 to 6 times a year, mostly during this time of the year when we have these severe thunderstorms, when there's a backup, and really when the kids aren't in school. So I really don't think it's a big problem. I think I mean, it is a problem. There's no question it's a problem, but I think we've come up with a solution where we can block that, block the cars from going through it, and I think that's what wastewater wanted to make sure of, and provide for the other exit out on the other side of Marginal Street, which is a public way. So that's what we are proposing. Jim McCluskey said that was presented at the meeting. They had a big meeting, and he thought that that was acceptable. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. He thought it was acceptable. So that's what we're proposing.
Just by way of further background, I did speak with, as indicated, the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Backey, last week. He indicated he wanted the board to be aware of this change and asked if we could put it on tonight's agenda under old business. I said I didn't have no problem with that. And one of the questions was if they, and I think some discussion came out with, and of course, and we have a letter here that's dated July 14th. I don't know if there's a change yet from Mr. McCluskey, indicating that in accordance with our agreement of July 10th, 08, the design of an overflow tank to receive the surcharge draining that occurs on occasion at the corner of Marginal and the city DPW yard. If the proposed design is satisfactory to all parties, we'll assume that it will alleviate the existing problem. It is not possible to alleviate the whole problem. We will initiate a plan whereby, in the event of the overflow, the on-site security personnel will block entry through the west entrance and divert all traffic through the east gate onto Marginal Street until the problem is cleaned up. The program will stay in place until the city has resolved the current problem permanently. And that's a letter that we did receive, and it was given a copy to us this evening for our matter. Before I go further on this, Aaron, do you have any further comments, anything you want to address further through planning and development? I know there is a letter here that was dated July 11th. You did a good job of highlighting everything that took place on that meeting. A lot of them deal with a couple of the conditions that we did place on the site back on April 7th of 08. But anything you'd like to address before the board goes any further on this matter?
Sure, I can just give a little additional background on the meeting that was held between the applicant and the city departments, as well as the city manager. And essentially, that meeting was held to clarify the remaining conditions that were outstanding on the site plan approval that the board approved over a year ago now. And one of the major issues that was discussed during that meeting is something that the city felt needed to be dealt before a foundation permit could be issued, was the issue of the stormwater sewer overflow. It's a combined system, so it's not just stormwater, it's also sewage. And the sewage department and the city engineer's primary concerns were that the sewage would be tracked onto the site, that you would have raw sewage that could potentially be brought into the garage underground below the dormitory. And some of the solutions that were provided, as discussed, were the potentiality of an alarm system to close off that west gate temporarily, with the east gate being the primary access point. During that meeting, also discussed was checking into the possibility of building a tank, an overflow tank, that could hold sewage. At the time, Jack Legee was going to look at the datum and the height, what appeared to be how high the sewage would overflow, and design and construct a sewage tank, which came out to what they expected would be a 185,000 gallon tank. During that meeting, it was our understanding that the alarm system and the tank system were a package of a a solution. It wasn't one or the other. And that the applicant, at the very least, would look at the tank solution and see if it was at all practicable. And so, I guess what we were looking for was something that could be done to reduce the number of the amount of times that the sewage overflow would happen. I've heard several different numbers between 5 and 6 and 2 and 12, but what we were looking to do was minimize the amount of time that western gate would have to be closed and bringing access up the eastern side. So, for instance, if this did happen 6 times, you would expect that the gate on the west side would be closed for 2 to 3 days, depending on the situation, how long it takes to clean up. There is a removal aspect. It just doesn't wash away. DPW currently removes the sewage. It's not sanitized. That is not a process that's done. It's just removed and can take 2 to 3 days, depending on when we notified what day it happens, if it happens on a weekend, whatnot. So if you have a situation where it happens 6 to 7 times a year, you're looking at that gate being closed up to 30 days out of a year. So the idea of the tank, in concurrence with the street closure, was that we would minimize the need to close that side of the street as much as possible. Now the question is, what is practical? What is a practical tank to build and accommodate that sewage overflow? So I know the applicant has a feeling that and understandably so, an 185,000 gallon tank is probably a little excessive. But as far as an alarm system, we do think that could be a solution that would work well. We would just have some concerns on the application of that, how it would work and how it's installed to ensure that it's going to function correctly.
I want to just address that tank. We did look at that.
Okay.
185,000 gallon tank, and the cost was approximately $1 million.
$1 million?
Yeah. This is, like I said, this is a city problem. It's been there forever. Jack Lucci did come up with another solution, which he's going to present to the city engineer. I guess there's a city parking lot located behind the bend in Marginal Street, which is at elevation 45, which is less than the manhole in Marginal Street. He was going to propose putting a catch basin in that, which would catch it earlier, and I guess there's a flow through out of there someplace, going someplace. So that would stop some of it from getting into Marginal Street, is another way to do it. But I mean, we want to work with the city, but the cost of a tank was cost prohibitive for a situation that hopefully the city will take care of within the next 5 or 6 years when they bring in the new sewage. So I think what we're proposing, the alarm should work. I think everybody's agreed it should work. We will then close out the street. Jim tells me that when it is closed, when there is a problem, it only lasts a day, not 2 days. It usually goes away pretty quick. And like I said, I don't know that it's 4 times. I don't know that it's 6 times. I don't know that it's 8 times. But we are willing to do that. Like I said, we have security there to do it. I think the original approval that we got said that we will provide stormwater drainage consistent with the functional requirements of the planning board's rules and regulations, and I think that's what we've done. All our on-site is going to go into an infiltration system. There's not going to be anything coming off our site, so I think we're making every effort to try to help the city resolve its issue and stop it from coming on site.
The only couple comments I have is, obviously, we know that the city is in the process now of trying to correct this combined sewer overflow. I mean, all cities the size of Lowell and our surrounding areas have the same problem, like Lawrence, everywhere else, because the infrastructure was done so long ago. And I know now, I think it's being done in phases. I think presently it's being done up on Chelmsford Street in that area. And
Right.
when it's going to get down to Middlesex Street, I don't think we know exactly when that phase would be. I don't even know if we know what the next phase is going to be as of yet.
I think it's 5 or 6 years.
I can answer that to some
Okay.
degree. That right now we're in phase 1 at Chelmsford Street, and that they're looking to have that closed out by 2011. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And then at phase 2, planning will begin for 2011 beyond. That could take a year to 2 just to do the planning, and then there's the construction portion, which would be another couple of years, and then that doesn't. There's also a prioritization. There's other areas in the city that do overflow, that have sewage overflow. whether or not this area would be prioritized as Phase 2 is a question. So we're not even sure if this would be the project area after Phase 1.
The date that I heard was 2013. They figured it would be done by 2013, but I don't know whether...
Phase 2, that's
Yeah,
right. Phase 2,
2013.
that's what I've heard for Phase 2, but
Yeah.
what is in question is whether this would be the next area that would be part of Phase 2, or if it would be another part of the city. Because there are sewage overflows in other parts of the city that actually are in residential areas. This right now has not been a priority because it's a vacant industrial site. It now obviously is an issue when you have 400 students moving in, and is why the city has taken such an interest in making sure that this project is done in such a way that we mitigate as much as possible impact on the students. So I think Mr. Flood is right that it could be 2013. It just depends on what the planning for the sewer separation is.
I guess one aspect is where it's located on the DPW site. Hopefully you'll get the attention it deserves when it's right there at that site.
I can't hear you.
I said one of the things is where the overflow is now.
Yep.
It's right located on the Division of Planning, the DPD site where it is right now. So
Right.
they see it and they know about it when it
Right.
happens, so
Right.
hopefully it gets the attention it deserves when it does happen.
Right, well, I think they have the parking lot back there too, where we were proposing to put in a catch basin to try to further alleviate it and mitigate the problem, so.
And and I like the idea of opening this when necessary instead of just opening the whole other aspect off the other end of Marginal Street instead of coming in behind the Palms Car Wash, for a full-time site.
I think that's a better entrance, full-time entrance, but when there's a problem...
I remember when this came in, when we did approve it back in April 7th of '08, we did discuss that at length that night.
Yep.
And I know part of it was, all parties were glad that they were cutting off that portion of it. I can see where in emergency situations, it would, could meet the criteria to at least address it on an emergency basis. But having said that, I'll turn it over to any further comments from any of the board members. Any of the board members have any comments? So basically, if I understand it correctly, that would be used only on an emergency situation basis.
It would, the other entrance?
Yeah.
Would only be used when we close
So you
off
have
the west side.
You have the gates on two ends. They would come in behind Palms Car Wash
Yeah.
at all times, and then when they had the emergency situation with the combined sewage overflow, they would shut that gate, open up the other one.
Yeah, they go out and gate it up, they gate it up,
And
right.
then when the health, and then when that site is cleaned up, they'd close down Marginal Street again and open up the regular site.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
are we looking for a vote this evening, or are we looking
think
just to
what-
see if this satisfies that condition of our...
I think it's to see whether it satisfies our condition. It sounds like Mr. Flood they're trying to work further on this project by fixing another manhole, right?
Right.
So, basically, it's just to see if, Aaron, by bringing this up in old business, would that emergency site access be acceptable to, for one of our approvals under the wastewater department, or that's something that we can approve and then send it back to wastewater for further comment? Because they're still gonna have to comment off, because the way I read it, it needs the approval from wastewater department. So if we agree to allow them to open up the marginal on the dead end, where it's gated off now, and send that back to wastewater, that they would still have a right to comment on whether they felt it received, if we put it down, the application must receive necessary reviews and approvals from wastewater. So that's the matter that's brought back before us. If we feel that's comfortable with that, not open up that emergency gate, the matter could still go back to wastewater department and have Mr. Flood continue to work with the city to try to approve it with his engineer to try to get less flow onto that site.
I don't have a problem with that. I think it has been discussed with Mark Young of wastewater, and I don't think he has a problem with this idea, so I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause, Mr. Chairman, my concern is I wouldn't want to take some sort of vote tonight that condition leaves it up to the city experts to determine that it came up with something that was acceptable, and so I just don't want to... has that been agreed upon with the city's wastewater department, or...?
The wastewater was looking for a solution that would close off that entrance in such a way that when there was an overflow, they could at the very least temporarily close it, open up the eastern gate. They also had an option of opening up the eastern side, eastern gate entrance, as the primary access. That was a wastewater suggestion, but as Mr. Flood has discussed, and I think the board is aware, that would be a rather large change to the plan and would affect the neighborhood. So looking at ways to kind of thread the needle on this, I guess, and devise a plan and a solution that doesn't affect the neighbors to the east. I know that the wastewater was looking for a temporary closure plan, and then they were very interested in the idea of a storage tank. Now, I understand the tank is probably impractical. If this other solution is doable, where from what it sounds like, sewage would then just basically flow onto the DPW site into a catch basin. That may work for Mark, but I would say that would also be on top of the alarm system, that those two would work as tandem. As far as from my discussions with Mark, that's how it would be. That when you have an overflow, even though it's flowing into the DPW site, you still have some of that sewage flowing in the road, and that the major concern would be cars driving over it. Now, if they can devise a way that the sewage doesn't even come up on the road and it just appears on DPW site, I would say that would probably be even preferable. But as long as there's sewage in that road, my understanding from Mark Young and the wastewater department is that they would not like that street open to prevent any tracking of sewage into the site.
I think the new idea that we have with that catch basin in the city is to keep the water off marginal and have it shoot out the way it presently is.
Underground.
Yeah, but I mean, I think as he said, they just want to make sure that when there is a problem, no one goes through it and brings it on site. And I think we've come up with that solution. The only problem, I'd like to get this going, Jerry. It's been a while because time is of the essence of construction here, so we'd like to get started. I think we've worked with the city and we've come up with plausible alternatives and ways to resolve this issue, which is really a city issue.
Right, and perhaps we could accept the proposed solution as a temporary solution without, affecting any future rights that the city may have to, follow through on this solution if the solution in fact doesn't work. But I'd say that, at least on a temporary basis, if this works, fine. I mean, that's what we're looking to do.
We hope it works, and we hope with the new catch basin on the city site, which we'll have to get an easement for to do, but that will stop it from coming on to marginal completely. So that's what we hope. But until we do it, we don't know.
Right. So
The final comment I would have about the alarm system is that the alarm was proposed for the new manhole that's on site. And my discussion with the city engineer is that wouldn't work. The alarm would not go off because there is what's called a flow fill. It's basically a concrete capsule that encapsulates the 36-inch sewer pipe, combined sewer pipe. And if there was to be an sewer overflow in the manhole at the end where the street turns, it would not overflow on this manhole, the new manhole that's proposed on site. That the alarm, if it's going to be used as a solution, needs to be placed in the manhole that is at the western gate, because that's the manhole that overflows. This is too technical, but just making sure that the alarm system works.
Absolutely, and I think the engineers should work that out. The problem that we have is that's on city property, and who's going to maintain that alarm?
Well, I don't think there was any problem of having. I think the city would be just fine having you guys put in an alarm system.
I think the engineers should work out the spot where that should be located. I mean, I can't answer that, and I don't think you can answer that.
Well, I know Lisa's answer to that is that.
And I think our engineer said opposite. So I think they should sit together and agree on that.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah. But just so you're aware of this situation.
I suppose an alarm system satisfactory to the city engineer.
I mean, basically, what I think we're looking at is they have the applicant continue to work with the city engineer and the wastewater department to try to put in a new sewage catch basin to help alleviate some of the problem there going through the site, as well as a alarm system at the catch basin that that to be approved by the city engineer in agreement with the applicant, and to make sure that the emergency gate is put into use when needed for the combined sewage overflow. Right? So basically, we're going to work for the CB, catch basin, the alarm system, and emergency gate. They're the three things we want to try to
Right,
do to
I think
alleviate
that's
the
what we
problem.
discussed, right.
Right.
Is that,
So, I mean, we can recommend that to the city engineer in the water department, that, you know, continue to work with putting the catch basin in, which you feel will take the sewage off your site.
we feel it will, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so I mean, obviously, if we can support that, hopefully that will help alleviate the problem on site, as well as the backup alarm system and the emergency gate. So
Mhm.
that will, could alleviate the problem that the wastewater department has, by bringing, instead of shutting off that whole gate completely and going to the other entrance. And this
Well-
way we'll alleviate this on a temporary basis when we have the emergency situation.
I'm not an engineer,
I
but the
understand.
way it's been explained to
engineers
me,
figure it out.
when we put that catch basin in on the city site, the elevation of that is at 45. The elevation in marginal at 46. So the backup would first, it'd come up out of the catch basin on the city parking lot and then flow where it's going now. And so the chances are it'll go that way instead of coming out of the one on Marginal Street.
But I'm saying if we do all three, that's the best way to relieve the problem on the site, right?
Right.
If we continue to put the catch basin,
Did you get that, Mr. Gendron?
put the alarm in, and then get the emergency gate. So if we try to do all three, hopefully we cut down the risk of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
That was- So we need, what do we need?
Do you need a motion from us to refer that to the wastewater department, or tell them that we're comfortable with the acceptance of the new catch basin, the alarm system, and the emergency gate?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that, but I would really caution at the way that alarm system is built, from my understanding, and I know our engineers are at odds on this, but from my understanding and the way I read it, that the alarm system will not work if it's put into the catch basin. If the new manhole is built correctly, it shouldn't overflow, is the point.
Right.
And so if the alarm system is put in that manhole, it would not work. So I would just caution that we make sure the motion, that the motion is made so that there's flexibility that the alarm system is
So
built
why don't
in
we
such a way.
characterize it as a temporary solution to be approved by the engineer,
Yeah,
and
right.
let's see if this works.
That's fine.
And the reason why I'm trying to put in the three, the catch basin, the alarm system, and the emergency gate, so whatever it takes, to whether it's the combination of the two or just one, if the catch basin does it, fine. If it needs both of them, at least we have the agreements of doing the two. And then if that alarm system has to be in a catch basin, a catch basin, not on that site, but other site, then the city engineer could probably design which one it should be at. So I think
That
if we
sounds
try to
good,
put in
yes.
all three, hopefully the three of them, on any combination of those, will hope can take care of the combined sewer overflow.
Well, the alarm and the gate should be together at the very least.
I mean, yeah, the alarm and the gate, I agree. And
That's
then
the big
then I'm
thing.
trying to throw in the catch basin as another alternative to hope to address all three issues.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Okay?
Is that right?
You understand the wording on that?
I think we can work it
We'll
out.
figure
yes.
it out.
You understand what we're doing, Mr. Flood?
I think so.
Okay. So what we're gonna try to do is recommend, tell them that we're in favor of trying to work out, as suggested, to help cure the sewage overflow and the combined sewage overflow thing by looking at the new catch basin that you want to put in, have the city, have the
Yeah,
city
that's-
engineer look at that. And then also, while you work with that, also consider the alarm system with the emergency gate. And if the alarm system has to be engineered and put into a certain catch basin, the city engineer can help work with that, to leave that overflow. And hopefully, either one of these things will work, or
And
both of them.
also the shutting down of Marginal Street, too.
Right,
Is that in
right.
there? Yeah,
That's-
okay.
When I said about emergency gate, that's what I meant, that we shut down one side and open the other one up. So
All right.
basically, and hopefully, that will work. Hopefully, if the catch basin does it, fine. If not, then we have all three things on record. We'll maybe combine all three of them. Maybe the combined matters will help the combined sewer overflow. Okay, so we'll make a recommend, so the motion's been made and second, that we recommend that those matters be addressed and sent to the city engineer and the wastewater department, that we're in agreement with those. Motion's been made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Therefore, the
Thank you.
matter passes 5 in favor, none against. Good luck.
Can I just
Thank
ask,
you.
who seconded that?
Rich?
Thank you.
Good luck.
Right.
Okay. The next matter we have on old business is Hickory Hill subdivision, a performance bond. The planning board will address the remaining $2,000 held under a tri-party agreement as a performance bond for the subdivision known as Hickory Hill Estates developed by Applewood Construction Company. The board will decide whether or not to act on the bond to secure funds in order to complete the sidewalk repairs located on Freedom Way. Yeah, can you give just, I know we discussed this, but could you give a little background on this matter for the board members?
Yeah, this was a project that was done a while back. It's Patriot Way, I believe, is the address that was used in the permitting, in the subdivision, definitive subdivision plan. The project has quite a history, and the board probably actually has a lot more information than I do on this in our heads, but it went through a couple ownership. There's a couple developers involved in this, and it's pretty much done except for there's a sidewalk portion on, I believe it's Patriot Way, that has been damaged due to some infrastructure work that the developer was to do to finish up the work on site. And our engineering department has been trying to contact the developer to repair that sidewalk. It's basically, it's a very small repair. It's just basically another top coat of asphalt, apparently, just to flatten it out. And the developer hasn't called back or anything like that. So the engineering department has asked that we put it to the planning board to see about taking that money and finishing the job ourselves, because we haven't had any response. I didn't even get a response from the developer in putting this on the agenda tonight. Sent them a letter to let them know the situation. I contacted the engineering department. They haven't heard from them since we put it on either. So
When this first came to my attention, Aaron called me about this, and I said, basically I said, why don't you put on the agenda? Sometimes when we do that, hopefully they get in, they finish the work. And then by the time it comes here, I said, then we'll see it's all done, and that's the end of it. And Aaron said, fine. I said, even phrase the letter in a way that if it's completed, you know, you might not have to appear before the planning board. If you want to be heard on it and you have most of the work in progress and everything else is being completed on time, you need additional time, that the chair may be willing to take you first on the agenda, hoping that would move them along. So I mentioned that to Aaron, he said, sure, I'll send out the letter, tell them what's happening. I go, but tell them it's going to go on the agenda. If they start working on it, try to complete it. We'll try to work with them anyway whatsoever. As a result of Aaron sending that out, not even a response. So I think the next matter would be move to act on a performance bond. I mean, if they don't respond to a letter, and it's only $2,000, hopefully, most of the time, people are going to go in and fix it for that reason. And so I'd say the next matter is we would have to refer to the law department, right, to act on the performance bond.
yeah, I believe that's the process, absolutely.
And then they would take it there legally to decide which way to go. Like I say, he sent them out the letter for, when he mentioned to me briefly, and I said, sure, you know, draft it up, let them know, tell them it's going to be on the agenda. Hopefully they can work it out. It's not a large sum of money, but if they're just going to walk away from the site, we should act on the bond to clean it up.
It's possible. I mean, I believe the streets have already been accepted. The city council accepted all the streets over there, so he doesn't own those streets anymore. He just may be walking away. It's a small amount of money, so I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we send it to solicitor's office to...
With the recommendation that we act on the bond, the performance bond?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Second motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. So we'll act on that, send that to them to collect the money on there and perform the work. Right.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. Aaron, is $2,000 sufficient money to address the issues?
Surprisingly enough, it's apparently more than adequate.
That was one of the questions I asked him. I said, you know, if it's close to 2,000, they might say, it's not worth us doing it.
Right.
He says, we can fix it for a lot less than that. So I said, you know, because usually just to let it alone, you go, okay, clean it up, you know. And I said to him, do we have a lot there? And that, he says, no. He said, this is a minor thing that they can fix, well less than the 2,000. You know, sometimes people get to the point with the cost today, with it, we're sending people up, they're doing it, even if it was a couple $100, you might say, why bother? But basically, this is one of the main reasons why we do put the performance bond up, and usually for something this small, we've never had a problem with something as little as this.
I'm a little surprised.
Yeah.
Not much.
So, so basically, hopefully, we can fix it up with a lot less than that and get it done and make the site presentable. So, okay, thank you. Moving along, we do have notices from abutting town. Entertain a motion to place those on file.
So moved.
Chairman,
Second, okay, those on file. We did have an A&R plan in our packets, that's for our consideration. Moving along, we do have a couple of notices of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have 4 matters, and these are matters that will be appearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals on July 28th, 2008, and they will be a public hearing on these matters on July 28th. Tonight, we just have these matters in front of us for recommendation purpose only. The first matter for our consideration tonight is a Metro PSC, Massachusetts LLC, and this is for a special permit for telecommunications. Property is located at 137 Phoenix Ave, and it's light industrial. This is to allow the co-location onto an existing tower and the installation of related equipment for Metro PSC according to section 7.6 of the zoning ordinance, telecommunication facilities. So basically what they want to do is put a couple of antennas on an already existing monopole. And their antennas will be down even lower than the existing antennas that are on the site now. The matter still has to be approved by the state as well.
But there's no additional construction involved. I'd make a motion to recommend approval.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made, for approval and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any vote in opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries 5 in favor, none against. The next matter is a variance. The application is John Sheehan and Judith Mello Sheehan. This is 297 Fairmont Street, which is suburban single family, to raise an existing detached garage and reconstruct a new garage with insufficient front yard setback according to Article 5, Section 5.1, Table of Dimensional Requirements. There is a plan in there. It appears they're going to rip down the old garage, which they indicate is in has disrepair due to age and water damage, and put up a 1.5-story garage, I believe. I think on the plan they showed the existing garage to be raised. The new garage will be bigger, but it will stay basically on the site, except for it's closer to the real lot a little bit. But the side yard will stay the same. I guess the rear yard's almost the same. Or the front rear yard for the back area. So they're gonna put a 24 by 24 where an existing old garage was 21 by 21. And make it a little bigger than what was there.
It is a fair setback variance request on the front yard where it's 30 feet required and only 5.1 provided, but I mean, it's consistent with what they have now. They're not making it any worse than what it is now. And my guess is that with the existing asphalt berm they have and the pole, they may not be able to relocate that garage back in the lot. They probably can't access it if they move it back. So based upon that, I'd recommend approval.
The only concern I have is, the existing garage, yes, is an existing garage, but, and it's grandfathered, but they are putting a larger garage up, both a larger dimensional and a 1.5-story, and proposing a driveway. Sounds like a pretty significant change to the lot. I think it's largely dependent on feelings of the abutters. I'd almost want to say, I'd be more inclined to say, let's let's take no action on this one pending, you know, the feelings of abutters, because, you know, when you're now adding a larger garage and putting a driveway in, it kind of changes the picture a little bit.
Fair enough. And we certainly have no way of knowing from the plan if that could be relocated back. It looks like it cannot, but perhaps it could be, which would be a better solution. So I'll support that to take no action.
Yeah, I agree with that. So,
Okay, so basically, the vote is by Mr. Gemma to take no action. And Steve, which way do you want to phrase that, so the Board of Appeals?
So I'd like to suggest...
One of the concerns would be the neighbor to the rear?
Yeah, that we take no action pending...
Input from the neighbor?
Input from the abutters.
Okay.
maybe you'll see it on the plan.
I mean, you know, with the question, you know, can the garage be put on site properly, or, because like I say, without looking at the exact way the lot is shaped in the back, it's kind of, it's a different sized lot, you know what I mean? Like, it slopes inward there, instead of, you know, it has like, almost like,
Right here.
like the U shape to the end
Yeah,
here, like
yeah.
a half U, which is kind of different shape. I know when I was zoning, we tried to get away with that, and the new matters, when we come up with those pork chop plots and all those matters, but, so, we'll make the motion's been made that, take no action on the plan until we hear, until the Board of Appeals has further comments from the abutters. The motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. The next matter is, let me see if I get this. Kahib Abel Fahad, and this is for 142 First Street, which is traditional two-family, to maintain existing two-family dwelling with insufficient land area per dwelling unit according with Article 5, Section 5.1, and without the required off-street parking in accordance with Article 6.6.4. In reading here, it looks like we have a letter from Mr. Camacho who indicated that at one point in time, the matter was zoned a two-family, and then the doors were locked and physically separated the first and second floor. And therefore, Mr. Camacho indicates that once a valid building permit is in place, all the renovation has been completed to code, inspectional services will recognize the property as a two-family. It looks like he started doing some work, and some type of issuance of a citation was issued by the inspector, because it says, this office will also immediately withdraw the criminal violation for the illegal change of use. And then it says, from a single to two-family, but will let stand the criminal violation for working outside the issued permit until proper permit identifying all the reservation is in place with a licensed contractor. So I guess they were working outside the permit, which so they get cited for the violation. So I imagine that's what triggered it to come before us. But it looks like it was a two, then the question was it was a one, and then he's saying if they fix it properly, they will recognize it back as a two.
Right.
So it sounds like the applicant's trying to get permission to have it recognized back as a two-family.
Right, and in order to do that, he needs this variance to maintain it because it's got insufficient lot area.
Because it wasn't being acted as a two-family for a period of time?
Right.
Right.
So it looks like he's trying to do the right thing with it. They pulled away the criminal complaint, other than the fact that it looks like he didn't have a licensed contractor working on it originally.
Right.
So, provided he complies with the building commissioner's suggestions and requirements, I'd suggest that we recommend approval to keep it as a two-family.
Motion's made, and second on the motion?
Second.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any against? Hearing none, that matter carries. The next matter is Valley Properties that we had on earlier tonight, and was continued to our August 18th meeting. And this is to do with their special permit for the, I think it's for the drive-through pharmacy, and to exceed the required tree space in accordance with the configuration to be built in an existing shopping center. We did continue that matter till August 18th, 08. I don't know if the board wants to take action on that now, or wait until we see the complete site plan. Okay, so recommend that we continue the matter to, indicating that the matter was not advertised properly this evening, and the matter was continued until August 18th, and therefore the board is requesting that we put this matter off to a future date until we have a chance to look at the whole, act on the site plan. Is that an agreement? Okay, hearing none, that motion carries. Moving on, do we have any other comments from board members or general comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and second. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, he was there earlier.
What's happened, Mark?